Okay, let's begin. Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuhu, everyone. Brothers and sisters, put down your DeLonghi coffee and grab your notebook. Welcome to another session of Speaker's Corner. Just a reminder, for questions during the session, please type them into the Q&A, and those on YouTube, type them into the live chat, and one of our admins will read them out at the end of the talk. Today, we're delighted to welcome Shaykh Shafiur Rahman, who will talk us through Reconnecting with the Quran. The Shaykh works as a management consultant, occasional Imam, and Islamic studies teacher. He holds an MSc in addictive behavior and a postgrad in business admin. He spent a number of years in the Middle East studying Arabic and Islamic studies, including at the prestigious Al-Azhar University in Cairo. He teaches Arabic and Islamic studies in Al-Salam Institute and Jibril Institute. He is also the director of the latter and a trustee at the East London Mosque. Currently, he serves as the executive director of the Usmani Trust, which is a youth and community organization based in Tower Hamlets. Over to you, Sheikh.
Assalamu alaikum, jazakumullah khairan for your kind invitation. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa usallim ala man bu'itha rahmatan lil alameen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een wa ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sorry, I'm getting disturbed by somebody calling. I hope it doesn't disturb the... Sorry, that was somebody's trying to call on my phone. Sorry. Hopefully people can hear me and see me, inshallah. As I began with praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending peace and blessings on the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I've been asked to speak about reconnecting with the Quran. As everybody knows, this is the month of Ramadan, month of fasting. It's also its second name, if you like, is the month of Quran. Everybody knows that, the month in which the Quran was revealed. But I want to take a step back before we come into the month of the Quran and reconnecting with the Quran. The Quran, or Wahi, revelation, is actually intimately connected with our human nature. The story goes all the way back to our father, Adam alayhi salam, the first human being that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created to send on to the earth as a test. And as we know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. And when your Lord said to the angels that indeed, certainly I'm making on the earth, for the earth, a Khalifa, a vicegerent. And we know the story where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked the angels to bow to Adam alayhi salam, right? We know the story where Adam alayhi salam and Hawa were given the freedom of Jannah to eat from wherever they wanted, except for one tree as a test. And we know what happened. Everybody knows the story, right? But the important thing here is when they slipped up, when Adam alayhi salam, Hawa, they both slipped up, right? They made a mistake. They were deceived by shaitan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَزَلَّهُمَا الشَّيْطَانِ. He caused them to slip. Shaitan caused them to slip. But after he had made that mistake, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that Adam alayhi salam received some words from his Lord. فَتَلَقَّى آدَمُ مِنْ رَبِّهِ كَلِمَاتٍ فَتَابَ عَلَيْهِ إِنَّهُ هُوَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ. So Adam alayhi salam received words from his Lord. And then his Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, turned towards him in forgiveness. Indeed, he is oft returning to his servants. After that, so the first lesson here is that as soon as Adam alayhi salam made a mistake, the only way he could find his way back, the only way he could return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was from guidance, hidayah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then immediately after that verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقُلْنَا اهْبِطُوا مِنْهَا جَمِيعًا فَإِمَّا يَأْتِيَنَّكُمْ مِنِّي هُدًى فَمَنْ تَبِعَ هُدَايَ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we said to all of them, Shaitan, Adam alayhi salam, Hawa, get down from here, all of you together. And if there shall come to me from me guidance, right, hidayah, then whoever follows this hidayah, whoever follows this guidance, then there shall be no worry for them, no fear for them, right? So basically, our father's story begins with making a mistake and then returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through hidayah, through guidance, through wahi, through the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's the original guidance and promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who said that go onto the earth for a while, live there, and whoever I will be sending guidance, I'll be sending wahi, I'll be sending hidayah. Whoever follows this, there's no fear on them. They'll be successful, they'll be safe. They'll be safe from all harms in the dunya and the akhirah. And those who reject this, they will be punished in the hellfire forever. So the wahi, the connection with the Quran is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's wahi, it's revelation, is not simply just now from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's not simply just in Ramadan. It's a part of us, it's a part of our history as human beings. And our father Adam alayhi salam was also the first prophet. And we know prophets receive wahi, they receive revelation. So humankind, our father, our history, our ancestry goes back and is deeply connected to the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not just through the Quran. And ever since then, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent many, many messengers, many, many prophets, and he sent them revelation and guidance throughout the ages until the final messenger, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this final guidance was revealed in this month, in Ramadan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly says, Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr. Indeed, we revealed it in the night of Qadr. Shahru Ramadan alladhi unzila fihi al-Quran. The month of Ramadan in which the Quran was revealed. So the month of Ramadan is so tightly connected with the Quran. In fact, they say it's a celebration of the revelation of the Quran that we fast. We fast because this month is special. We fast because there is a special night in this month. The speciality of this month is that it's marked by revelation. It is when the Quran was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, or as many narrations say, the whole of the Quran came down to the lowest heavens, and then from there it was revealed piece by piece. Either way, it happened in the month of Ramadan. So you can't separate Ramadan and Quran. There's no separation. They come together. The Quran is guidance, is hidayah, right? Why do we need guidance? Why do we need hidayah? Human beings, we are limited. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us with faculties of hearing, sight, of touch, sense, and smell. And He gave us an intellect. But all of these things are limited. Even our eyesight, we can only see a certain distance. We can only see a certain spectrum of light. Beyond that, we can't see. We can't see those light waves which are beyond our perception powers of human sight. Same with the hearing. Same with even feeling and sensing things, right? The human being is very limited. In terms of its aql, it's limited in terms of what it can do and what it can process, what it can understand. It's limited. However, we live in a world, not just a material world. We don't live in a world that is just, I can see the house, I can see the trees and the mountains and the roads, and that's it. No, we live in a world, a universe that is intertwined with beings and things that we can't see. So we know in the month of Ramadan, even Laylatul Qadr, what is the main thing about Laylatul Qadr? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He sends down angels on that night. And we know angels are present everywhere, right? There are angels when you go for Jum'ah, they're by the doors, right? Registering people. We know there's angels with us, right? We know there's jinn, there's shayateen. So we are actually living in a world, in an existence that has an unseen part to it and a seen part. The seen part we can see, the material physical world we can see. But there is another part which we cannot see, another part of the existence, of reality, of our lives, where we cannot see those other beings. Nor can we see without revelation the sunan, the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can see the physical laws. We can see gravity in action. We can see the laws related to light. We can see the laws related to mass and weight and speed and things like that. But other laws, moral laws, consequential laws that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, if a human being does this, this will be the consequence in the dunya. If a community does X, Y, and Z, this will be the consequence in the dunya. Those laws, those consequences, those rules, we cannot see. And we can't simply work them out by observation. So the human being is very limited. The Quran comes, wahi comes, revelation comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us into this unseen world, to guide us to perceive that which normal human beings cannot perceive, to guide us to see that which others cannot see. This is the Quran because it opens up the reality. It tells us of things that we cannot see in the dunya, and of course, the major reality that it opens up in front of us is the hereafter, is the next life, is the day of judgment, is paradise, is hellfire, is about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all of these things, there is no way that the human being, unguided, without revelation, without wahi, without the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we cannot work these things out. We cannot perceive these things. We cannot see these things. So that's why the Quran is called guidance, hidayah, hudal lin-nas, hudal lil-muttaqeen. This is the answer to the prayer we make in Surah Al-Fatiha every day, right? We say, oh Allah, guide us to the straight path. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqeen. Guide us to the straight path. And straight after Surah Fatiha comes Surah Al-Baqarah. Alif Lam Mim. ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين. Alif Lam Mim. This is the book, or that is the book, in which there is no doubt. It's a guidance for the muttaqin, those who fear Allah or live by the commands and prohibitions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the book is a book of guidance. It guides us, it opens our eyes and our hearts and our minds to the proper reality of the world, of life, of existence. It tells us our purpose here. It tells us the dangers. It tells us the pitfalls. It tells us the sunan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It tells us how to find the straight path that leads to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It guides us in every aspect of our lives. So this is, the purpose of the Quran. It's like, if somebody loses their hearing or somebody loses their sight, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that, they will be harmed without a doubt, unless, they're aided and they learn how to walk with a stick or a guide dog or with a hearing aid. But if they didn't have all that, they'll be harmed in the dunya. They won't be able to find their way. They may be falling into places or bumping into things. They'll be harmed, simple as that. Similarly with the Quran, human beings are wandering in the dark. Similarly, without revelation, without wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, human beings are groping in the dark. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives a beautiful example as well of this. The Quran is light, it's nur. It brightens, it enlightens, it allows us to see that which others cannot see. It allows us to see the reality, why we were created, what's our purpose, what are we meant to be doing here, where are we going, all the big questions, right? As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَوْ مَنْ كَانَ مَيْتًا فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُ نُورًا يَمْشِي بِهِ فِي النَّاسِ كَمَنْ مَثَلُهُ فِي الظُّلُمَاتِ لَيْسَ بِخَارِجٍ مِنْهَا. Is he the same, the one who was dead, and we gave him life, and we gave him a light. We gave him a light by which he walks amongst men. In other words, he leads others with this light. Is he the same as the one who is in utter, total darkness, and he cannot exit from that darkness? No, they are not the same. So the Quran is this light, right? It revives the dead. People are dead without guidance, without revelation, without knowing their purpose, without knowing their Lord, people are dead. The Quran comes as something that revives the human being, something that gives us life. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that respond to that which gives you life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls the Quran as that with the thing that gives you life. So with this thing, we become alive. With this thing, we become guided. With this thing, we can tell others which direction to go in, how to live, excuse me, how to live our lives. So this is the purpose of the Quran. It is hidayah, it is guidance. But unfortunately, what we've done is what Hassan al-Basri said, and this is very early on, the first century after Hijrah. Hassan al-Basri, the great scholar, hadith scholar, Zahid, great speaker, right? He said that the Quran was revealed for guidance, to live by its guidance and its laws. However, people have taken the Quran, the people have taken its recitation as amal, as action, as good deeds. What he's trying to say is, look, and this is like I said, within the first century of Islam, he said that the Quran was meant to be a guide. You're meant to read it, understand it, and follow it, right? It's instruction, it's guidance, it's hidayah. But people have simply taken its recitation, just qira'ah, tilawa, khatam, as its action, as the good deed. No, what he means is the amal of the Quran is not simply its recitation. It's meant to be pondering, understanding, and following its principles, its guidance, right? Its remembrance, what it reminds you of, what it makes as a priority in the Quran. We should make priority for ourselves the same way. What it prohibits us from, we should stay away from. What it commands us to, we should race towards it. What it warns us against, we should beware of it. What it tells us about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his ni'mah, his love for us, his blessings on us. All of these things are meant to be guidance upon which we reflect and act on. Unfortunately, in our communities, for the vast majority of us, I think it's true, we've taken the Quran, and this has gone on for a long time. It's a sacred book. It's something very special. We don't go near it. It's something reserved for the top shelf. When someone dies, we recite Yasin, or we teach kids just how to read the letters and do one khatam. They finish from Fatiha to Nas, they finish the Quran, they know how to read it, finish, khalas. And that's it. Or every Ramadan, now, everyone comes together, every Ramadan, yes, we must do one khatam, which is just reciting the whole Quran from beginning to end. And we must go every night, Taraweeh prayers, to recite or hear beautiful recitation from international imams. And we must finish the whole Quran in Taraweeh every night until the last night. And that's become our relationship with the Quran. It's very formal. It's very, it's just an external form of the Quran. It's become very, what they call it, very ritual. Just the formality of it, which is simply the letters, beautiful recitation, qira'ah, and we adore the people who recite it, and that's it. But we've forgotten the message. One of the reasons is obviously because we've been barred from the language of the Quran, and maybe our parents were definitely barred from the language of the Quran. And perhaps in their countries, translations were not easily available. Many people were not literate. So their relationship with the Quran was very ritual. It was about just reading, recitation. That was the amal that Hassan al-Basri is talking about. We also inherited that from our parents and their parents. It's changing now slowly, alhamdulillah. People are learning Arabic, people are studying. But as a whole community, we have to reconnect to the Quran in the way it was meant to be. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Do they not reflect, tadabbur, ponder over its verses, analyze it, think about it? أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. So many times, do not use your intellect. Apparently in the Quran, Over 700 times is mentioned. The word aql in its various forms, over 700 times, to use our mind. This is the primary purpose of the Quran. It's come so that we think about it, we reflect on it. We have to use our aql. We can't simply take Islam without thinking. We have to think about it. We have to reflect on it. We have to understand Islam. We have to understand what the contents of the Quran is and what it means. How does it apply to my everyday life? This was the purpose of the Quran, but we've taken it, as Hassan al-Basri said, as merely a recitation. And it's a heavy guidance. It's not something to be taken lightly. But if we can adopt it, then the rewards are huge, right? The Quran was meant to guide, transform, change, improve individuals, families, and societies. In 23 years, the whole world was changed, right? In 23 years, the Ummah of Muhammad ﷺ was formed, and they went out within the first 40, 50, 60 years. They reached to the East and the West. A whole, this simple desert living kind of small tribal system, Bedouins and small town, became leaders of a of a new civilization with a very short space of time, because of the guidance of the Quran. Because of the guidance of the Quran, it was transformative. They understood it. It was in their language, Arabic, clear Arabic. They understood it. They internalized it. They followed it, and they lived by it. So our duty is really to reconnect with the Quran. We should also, excuse me, we should also find time in this month to sit down with translations of the Quran, rather than saying that we must finish the whole Quran. We should sit down with the translation, try and reflect, ponder over the Quran, try and understand its meanings, even if it's a page or half a page a day, even if it's a few verses per day, right? We should do this. This way we can reconnect back to the Quran. The month of Ramadan, the Prophet ﷺ used to revise the Quran twice. Sorry, I need to. So where was I? Coming back to the Quran and the month of Ramadan. We really need to, pause. Don't rush for doing a whole khatam. Reflect, get a translation out. There's many good translations out there. Read few verses every day. You can have a separate tilawa reading where you try and finish the Quran. I think I need to probably stop. I think I'll take questions, because I don't know, I've just got this sudden cough thing.
I think you've got the Ramadan cough.
Ramadan cough. Let me just try one more sip of water, see if it works.
If it's easier, we can go straight to questions.
Bismillah. So if we can really focus on reconnecting to the meaning of the Quran, this is the main thing, and really appreciate what we have. Wallahi, since we're living in modern times or postmodern times, and since 2-3 centuries ago, the West kind of, now not just the West, globally, but mainly in the West, this period of enlightenment and then modernity, the key thing was about separating or letting go of tradition, letting go of wahi, of revelation, of religion, and making the human being the source of all guidance, right? And now we can see where that is leading to, with the collapse of morals, with the destruction of the environment, with oppression, injustice, inequalities, and people are again groping in the dark, wanting to find sources of morality, meaning again. And the Muslims are very fortunate that we have. Someone may say, well, other religions have books as well. Yes, they do, and we also believe in the Injil and the Torah and any other books that came to other prophets. We believe in that. But as Muslims, we have to count our blessings and be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we have the only authentic revelation that's intact in terms of its original form, if you like. It's the only authentic remaining revelation. And that is such a blessing, because we know it's coming from a pure source, it's not tampered with, and it's original, if you like, original words from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the solutions and the guidance contained in that Quran are relevant for all mankind, for all times. So we need to be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we need to appreciate this book. We need to return to this book in terms of understanding it, pondering over it, and making it applicable and relevant again to communities, to families, and to the wider society. I think I'll stop here, inshallah. There was probably more I wanted to say, but maybe through question and answer, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Obviously, I think the cough started.
Yeah.
More than welcome to get a drink of water while we wait for some questions to come through from the audience.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, I have a question while we wait for others to type out. Just following up with what you said about how society has made the Quran about formality and rituals, and then what you said right now about making it relevant into what we practice during our everyday life. I'm interested to understand how you've taken that Quranic guidance into the wider work you do with, for example, the Usmani Trust, which from reading on your website, I think it's all about giving guidance to the youth and community.
Well, Usmani Trust is something separate. That's just my day job, if you like. And it's just a very mainstream charity. It's not a Muslim charity or an Islamic charity. But in terms of outside of that, through the masajids and other institutes like As-Salam or the Jibril Institute where I teach, and some of the voluntary work we do, it is about reconnecting. It's about telling young people about the contents of the Quran. Many young people have never never understood, but they've never encountered the contents of the Quran. They've probably gone to madrasa in the evening, learned how to read without understanding. Many people memorize the Quran without understanding. But it's about engaging young people with the contents and the meanings of the Quran. Its purposes, right? Where it tells you very clearly why you're here, where you came from, where are you going. These are the key concepts that we need to try and get to the young people out there, or not just young, to everyone out there, to the wider society. This is the key.
Just on that, so we've got a question on the chat asking which English translation would you recommend?
There's a very good one called The Clear Quran by I think his name's Mustafa Khattab or Khattabi. It's an American author, Egyptian American, I believe. It's called The Clear Quran. It's probably one of the best. There's also Professor Abdul Halim's translation of the Quran from SOAS University. That's meant to be really good. I haven't seen it myself. Those two are probably really good translation. There's also something called the Study Quran, which may also be the quality is definitely good. But yeah, those are the Quran. But the Clear Quran is meant to be really good.
And actually, again, following on to that, someone's asked a question on the Q&A. I wanted to ask both for during Ramadan and in general, where do you think is a good place, surah or ayats, to start getting connected?
Where is a good place?
Where do you think is a good place? Which surah or ayat is a good place to start to get connected?
I don't think there's any particular surah or ayah, because the way the Quran, again, the Quran, the way it's structured, it's not like a normal book where there's a beginning and middle and an end. It's almost it moves from subject to subject. It sometimes talks about the akhirah, sometimes talks about rules and regulations of the dunya, sometimes about history, sometimes about Jannah and hellfire. So it moves almost in a cycle, and comes to and fro and meanders and weaves through. So wherever you start, you will get the guidance of the Quran. Wherever you start, it doesn't matter where you start. Wherever you start, you'll get the guidance of the Quran. However, if somebody wanted to focus a bit more on the next life, the hereafter, those kind of early Meccan surahs, which give the message very clearly, sharply, very powerfully. Then you start with the final, say, two juz, right? The 29th and the 30th juz, the 29th and the 30th parts of the Quran. Those would be good to start, but you can start anywhere, to be honest.
Cool, fantastic. Another question: given that children are good at memorization, would you recommend a coupled effort of memorization and understanding for children?
With children, I would say if they're very young age, say they're, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, that's probably best just to memorize at 6, 7, 8, very young. I'd say 90% memorization, maybe 10%. Trying to understand in a very basic way, just very basic understanding. But if they're older, like as soon as they become, I don't know, between 9, 10, up to 14, I think that's a crucial age where they need to understand what they're reading, not in a very deep way, not in a detailed tafsir, but just the plain contents of what they're reading. That's important, along with if they are memorizing.
Just actually a follow-up question on that. Do you think it's good to, when you go and try and get children to understand the Quran, do you think it's good to do it as a group or individually with children?
I think both can work. I think both can work, but it depends on individual circumstances. If you can do it one-to-one, that's brilliant. As a group, that might be more fun as an activity. So yeah, combine. I don't think one method over the other is particularly any significantly different.
We've got another question. Will we be questioned in the Akara on our understanding of the Quran?
We will be questioned on whether we followed the Quran or not, right? So how do you follow it? How do you follow the Quran without understanding? So, I mean, this is quite deeply embedded in our community, about whether to understand the Quran or not. And one of the problems, apart from what I mentioned in the talk, our kind of cultural historical issue, another problem is some trends or some thoughts or groups kind of put you off understanding the Quran. They say you're not a scholar, you're not qualified, you're going to make mistakes, you don't understand. It's totally wrong. We will be, it's like one of the Mufassir said in the introduction to the Quran about tafsir and understanding. So, same question was posed basically. So he said, look, the one who reads the Quran without understanding is like somebody who receives a letter from, the king, if you like. In those days, receiving a letter from the king was something really to be proud of. But these days, maybe you can't say the same for the prime minister or something. But anyway, someone really important sends you a letter. And he said the one who doesn't understand the Quran is like he receives the letter and he's in the dark. He doesn't know the content of the letter. He knows it's from the most important person in the land, yet he doesn't know the content. He doesn't know what to do with it. And the one who reads it with meaning and tafsir is the one who will guide him to it. So the other thing about reading, have you noticed, you would never pick up a book in German or French, if you don't understand those languages, or I don't know, Chinese or any other language, you would never pick up a book and simply read it without meaning if you don't know those languages. No one would ever do that. If somebody asked you, have you read, I don't know, this book or that book, right? And you say, yeah, I've read it. You mean in English or your own language. And it normally means you've read it and you've understood it. It's only with the Quran we do this. We read it without meaning. It's only with the Quran. I'm not denying the reward of recitation, that is there. Somebody who doesn't understand and recites the Quran, they'll get a reward. But that wasn't the main purpose of the Quran, to get reward by reading. The main purpose of the Quran is to understand it, even if it's through translation. Because language, the whole purpose of language, why are we speaking today, is because you understand what I'm saying, we're speaking in the same language. There's no communication if there's no understanding. There's no purpose in Allah sending His book if we don't understand it. So yes, we will be asked whether we followed it and what we did with the Quran. So we will be asked in that sense. But if we had the ability and we never spent any time trying to understand the Quran, we will definitely be asked about that.
So that's a really well put point, Sheikh. I have another question on the chat. Someone's asking, how do we reinterpret the Quran in the current age? And they ask, can you recommend a tafsir? But I think we recommended a tafsir with a clear Quran by Mustafa Katab.
That was a translation, it's not a tafsir. That's a big area and it's a big topic, reinterpreting Quran for our age, or unless they mean just making it relevant for our age. Unfortunately, any existing tafsir won't necessarily do that, because most of the tafsirs that are available in English now are like Ibn Kathir, which is 7 centuries old, or even older tafsirs are available in parts. So everyone who wrote tafsir wrote within their time frame and context and society and background, and focused on things which were important to them at the time as well. So they're useful to understand the Quran, but not always completely useful to understand how to apply it to our age and time. For that, you'd have to, and there's 2 main parts of the Quran. One part that everybody can understand and follow and get guidance from. These are the straightforward verses that remind you of akhirah, that remind you of doing good, right? And one point I was going to mention in the talk is the Quran is basically teaches you virtue. The Quran is not about rules and regulations in fiqh and law. There is law and fiqh in the Quran. It's less than 8 or 10%. 90% of the Quran is teaching you virtue and reminding you, and telling you lessons of the past, etc. So 90% of the Quran, the ordinary man or woman can understand through translation. It's only those verses we're not allowed to interpret or try and derive rules from, which requires qualifications and training, like you have to be a faqih, a mufassir, a trained scholar who can derive or understand those rules and regulations. Anything to do with basic Sharia, Islamic law, the layman or laywoman, layperson doesn't try and interpret that. But 80-90% of the Quran that talks about the next life, talks about Allah, talks about the past, those are the verses we can understand. So we need to understand the Quran and see how it relates to our context today. So we have to do that job. I'm not saying we become mufassir or interpreters of the Quran, but in terms of the Quran being a guide for us, we've got to try and apply it, if you like, and make it relevant. On top of that, you should listen to contemporary tafsirs that are available now on YouTube, and there's lots of different scholars giving tafsir or Quran classes, and they will also try and make it relevant for people as well. That way you can learn and see how it applies.
If you've got any more questions. Okay. So, Jazakallah Shaykh, I think we've hit the end of the time, so we're coming up to 1:45 now. Thank you so much for your time and answering the questions. Jazakallah khair.
Barakallahu feek.
So, Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh, everyone. Just a reminder, Sheikh Mudaffar will be starting recitation after a short break. Please use that time to note down the donation channels and support us in the work we are doing with the community. That's very important. And inshallah, we'll have a speaker's corner again, same time tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.